I wasn't invited to any of my siblings' weddings, so I decided not to invite them to mine. I have 4 older siblings, all of whom are married. None of them invited me to their weddings, because each one chose to have a ceremony without children. I thought I might be the exception, since I'm their sister. But the first one to get married was my older brother, Leonardo. His wedding was child-free, and the others followed his lead. When Leonardo got married, I was 10, so I understood why I wasn't invited, but I was still very upset. He married a woman I liked, and I wasn't even there to see it. My next brother, Fernando, got married when I was 12. Again, I wasn't invited, but I still didn't mind much, because I was a well-behaved child. My sister Beatrice got married when I was 15. At first, she didn't want a child-free wedding, but the family convinced her to exclude all kids, because it was easier. When I asked her to make an exception for me since I was 15, she said no. She said it wouldn't be fair to the other children. I was upset and yelled at her that it wasn't fair that I couldn't attend any of my siblings' weddings. My parents got mad at me and grounded me for 6 months. Finally, my youngest brother, Gustavo, got married when I was 17. By then, I didn't care anymore, because I knew it would be another child-free wedding, and I'd be excluded. And I was right. I didn't ask about it. And my cousin, who had just turned 18, was invited, but I wasn't. I didn't care. So I just sent a short message to congratulate him and ignored everything else. My parents got mad because I didn't congratulate them properly. I ignored them and spent all my time in my room with my fiancé. Now that I'm getting married, I decided not to invite any of my siblings to my wedding since they didn't invite me to theirs. When they realized they weren't invited, they started asking questions in the family group chat. Beatrice asked if there was a problem with the mail, and Fernando directly asked why he didn't get an invitation. I just read the messages and ignored them because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of a quick response. The next day, my mom called. As soon as I answered, she immediately started asking why I didn't invite my siblings, sounding angry like I had done something wrong. I took a deep breath and calmly told her they didn't invite me to their weddings, so I thought it was fair to return the favor. There was silence on the other end of the phone as she tried to understand what I said. Then she exploded. She asked if my fiancé had influenced me, saying I was always so sweet but now I seemed like a stranger. I almost laughed nervously because, as usual, my mom blamed someone else instead of accepting that I might be right. I told her, "It's not about him, Mom, this is my decision. They never made me feel important enough to include me in their most special moments, so I don't see why they should be at mine." She hung up on me, which was typical. The next day, the messages kept coming. Leonardo sent me a dramatic message, saying, "Mariana, I know you felt hurt about not being invited to my wedding, but you were just a child. It wasn't personal. I thought you would have gotten over it by now." How could he say that? They ignored me during all the important moments of their lives, and now they expected me to just get over it. I replied, "It's not about getting over it. It's about what's fair. If I wasn't important enough to be at their weddings, why should they be at mine?" It seemed fair to me. His reply came quickly, and it was even more ridiculous. He called me a spoiled brat and said that family should always come before resentment. Now, they wanted to pretend we were a close family, but where was that closeness when I was a little girl begging to go to their weddings? Things got worse when my parents decided to have an intervention. They showed up at my house without warning, thinking they could change my mind. As soon as they started talking, it was clear they cared more about what people would think than about me. My mom said, "What will people think of us? Mariana? What kind of person doesn't invite their own siblings to their wedding?" She spoke like I had done something terrible. I tried to explain again that this was about all the years of ignoring me, but my dad interrupted, calling me childish and selfish. That's when I lost my patience. I said, "Childish and selfish? I was a child when I begged to go to their weddings, and everyone said I was dramatic. Now, as an adult, they want to pretend that never happened. I'm sorry, but I'm not changing my mind. They're not coming to my wedding, and if you keep treating me like this, neither will you." The room went silent. My mom looked like she might faint, and my dad turned bright red. Without saying anything else, they left and slammed the door. In the weeks that followed, they called me spiteful and ungrateful. My siblings tried to make me feel guilty, saying I was ruining the family. Beatrice even tried to appeal emotionally, saying my nephews were excited about the wedding and it would be cruel to leave them out. This time, I ignored them. On my wedding day, I felt a huge sense of relief. The ceremony was exactly how I wanted it, light, full of love, and surrounded by people who truly cared about me. As I danced with my husband, I thought about how, For the first time, I had control over my life. Later, I found out that my mom had organized a separate dinner for my siblings on the same day as a kind of silent protest. I found it pathetic. They could comfort themselves however they wanted, but it wouldn't change the fact that, for the first time, I had stood up for myself, and that was liberating. After the wedding, I thought everything would settle down. It felt like a turning point in my life. The flowers, the music, the food, and the people there were perfect, all surrounded by genuine love. I didn't feel the absence of anyone, but, as always, peace didn't last. A few days later, the comments started. First, there were indirect remarks in the family group chat. Beatrice was the first, saying, "We saw some pictures of your wedding. Why did those flowers look so basic?" I tried to ignore it, but it started to irritate me. Then Fernando added, "And the venue, I don't know. It looked more like an impromptu party than a wedding. You could have asked us for help." Didn't he know I had blocked everyone from my social media? How had they seen the photos? It turned out they got them through mutual friends, which bothered me even more. Not only had they invaded a moment I had deliberately excluded them from, but they were also criticizing something they hadn't even experienced. I took a deep breath and forced myself not to respond, but it was hard. The last straw came when my mom called. She didn't waste any time with small talk. When I answered the phone, my mom immediately started criticizing me. "Mariana, what was that wedding? I saw the pictures, and honestly, I expected more from you. Everything looked so simple, nothing like your siblings' weddings. That dress, you deserved something more glamorous. Why didn't you have it in a church? Your sister had something much nicer. That wedding didn't seem worthy of our family." For a moment, I was speechless, not because I agreed, but because I was shocked by how rude she was. I tried not to explode, and when I finally spoke, my voice was cold. "Mom, the only thing that wasn't worthy here was you. You weren't even invited, yet you feel entitled to criticize. You saw pictures of something you shouldn't have seen. If you didn't like it, fine, because I didn't plan anything to please you." She got angry but didn't back down. "You're being so selfish, Mariana. Really, do you think you can just cut us out of your life? That's not normal. You've always been resentful, and now you're taking it out on us. What did we do to deserve this?" That was the last straw. I couldn't stay calm anymore. "What did you do? Let's refresh our memories, Mom. You ignored me during the most important moments of my life. I was never important enough to be at my own siblings' weddings. But now you expect me to include you in mine, as if nothing happened. That's hypocrisy. And the most ironic thing? The only thing that could have ruined my wedding was inviting you." There was silence on the phone. I thought maybe she'd finally understood, but no. She took a deep breath and said with contempt, "You're ungrateful. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us. You're abandoning your family for a man who barely just came into your life. You'll regret this." I hung up before she could say more. I was tired of arguing with someone who would never admit their mistakes. But the drama didn't stop there. My siblings, clearly encouraged by my mom, started sending me non-stop messages in the family group chat. Beatrice wrote, "You've destroyed the family, Mariana. Congratulations on pushing away everyone who ever loved you." Fernando, as always, made a show of it. "I hope the husband you chose is worth it, because you've lost everything for him." I read everything silently while my husband watched, knowing it hurt me but not wanting to get involved. After a few minutes, I left the group chat without replying. It wasn't worth it. The next days were full of private messages and calls, all of which I ignored. My mom even showed up at my door unannounced, but I didn't let her in. "Mom, there's no point. You only know how to criticize and belittle me. I don't want any more of that in my life." She yelled from outside, "Family is forever, Mariana. You can't just eliminate us because you're hurt." I opened the door just enough to reply, "Family should mean support, respect, and love, not manipulation and constant criticism. If that's all you have to offer, then yes, I can eliminate you from my life. And that's exactly what I'm going to do." I closed the door while she kept yelling, but I didn't pay attention. I had already made my decision. Since then, I've cut off all contact with them. The few times they tried to reach out, it was with more accusations and criticism, but I no longer had the patience for it. Now, my life is focused on me and my husband. We've built a relationship based on respect and love, everything my family never gave me. Looking back, I know walking away was the best decision. I don't miss anything, and I don't feel guilty. I'm finally at peace, living a happy life and knowing I don't owe anything to people who never truly valued me. My life is calmer and happier than I ever imagined it could be since I cut off contact with my family. I feel like I can finally breathe. My husband and I are focused on building a solid life based on love and respect, something I never had with my family. Recently, something very special happened. I found out I'm pregnant. It was an amazing moment when I saw the positive result. Tears filled my eyes, and my husband hugged me tightly, saying, "We're going to raise this baby with so much love that they'll never want for anything." From the start, we knew our child would only be surrounded by people who truly cared for them, which meant my family had no place in their life. However, as always, news travels fast. I'm not sure how they found out, maybe through a distant relative or a mutual acquaintance, but soon I started receiving messages. The first one was from my mom, Mariana. "I heard you're pregnant. I want you to know that, despite everything, we're your family, and it's important for the baby to have their grandparents around." I didn't reply. My husband and I had already decided that they wouldn't have any contact with our child. It wasn't because I wanted to be cruel, but because I couldn't risk exposing my child to the same toxic behavior I had endured all my life. After my mom's message, my siblings started messaging too. Beatrice, as usual, tried to manipulate me. "Congratulations on the pregnancy, Mariana. Despite all the fights, we're siblings, and I know you'll need support. We're here for you and the baby." Fernando, of course, was more direct. "Hold on to your grudge if you want, but at least let us meet our nephew. He deserves to know he has a big family." I read everything in silence while my husband, as always, stood by my side. He took my hand and said, "You don't have to reply. You don't owe them anything. This is our moment, and we only need those who truly care about us." He was right. The following week, my mom showed up at our house unannounced. When I opened the door and saw her with an expression that seemed like regret, my heart clenched for a moment, but I didn't let it affect me. Before she could say anything, I was direct. "Mom, don't insist. You're not a part of my life, and you won't be a part of my child's life either." She tried to argue, "Mariana, you can't do this. We're your family. This baby is part of us too." I replied firmly, "I'm not going to let my child go through what I went through. I want them to grow up surrounded by true love, without manipulation, without criticism, without emotional games. That's something you and the others never knew how to offer." She started to cry, but I knew those tears weren't real regret, they were because she wasn't getting what she wanted. Before she could continue, I closed the door. It was painful, but it was necessary. Since then, the messages and attempts at contact have continued, but they no longer affect me. My focus now is on my pregnancy, my husband, and the baby on the way. We're planning everything with so much love and care, and I can't wait to start this new chapter of our lives. Some might say it's selfish to keep my family away from the baby, but for me, this is about protection. I won't allow any toxic influence near my child. Today, I am at peace with my decision. I know my child will grow up in a safe and loving home, and that's all that matters. My family can keep blaming me and saying I'm wrong, but I don't care anymore. For the first time, I have control over my life and the life I'm about to bring into the world. And that is freeing.